Chipotle was worth $90 billion. Then a hedge fund pushed the founder out and replaced him with the CEO of Taco Bell. In 6 years, the portions shrank, the prices doubled, customers started filming their orders just to prove they were being ripped off, and a man in Michigan shot an employee over guacamole. The stock lost almost $40 billion in value. The CEO who oversaw it collected $117 million and left for Starbucks. This is how one hire broke Chipotle. But to understand what that hire destroyed, you need to see what Chipotle used to be. In 2006, the promise was simple: no freezers, no microwaves, no can openers. 53 ingredients, all pronounceable. Fresh food, prepared in front of you, every single day. By 2015, over 1,000 people had been hospitalized, sickened, or infected across 14 states. And the man brought in to fix it would end up finishing it off. It starts with a chef named Steve Ells. Steve Ells graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in 1990 and went to work as a sous chef at Stars, one of the top restaurants in San Francisco, under chef Jeremiah Tower. He learned open kitchens. He learned fresh, local ingredients. And on his lunch breaks, he ate at the Mission District Taquerias, those foil-wrapped burrito shops where you watched your food get built right in front of you. His plan was to use burrito profits to fund a real fine dining restaurant. The burritos were supposed to be temporary. He took his dad's $85,000, found a former ice cream shop on East Evans Avenue in Denver near the University of Denver campus, and opened Chipotle on July 13, 1993. The space was 850 square feet. He and his father calculated they needed to sell 107 burritos a day to break even. Within a month, they were selling over 1,000. The fine dining restaurant never materialized. The burritos were too good to leave behind. But what made Chipotle different was not the speed or the volume, it was the philosophy behind it. Employees arrived 4 hours before opening to hand-cut peppers, grate cheese, and make guacamole from whole avocados. The entire kitchen ran on ingredients you could actually read on a label, and nothing sat around long enough to need freezing. Ells said it plainly. Even though he knew they would serve food fast, he did not want it to be a typical fast food experience. But a burrito shop in Denver does not become a $90 billion company on fresh guacamole alone. That took McDonald's. In 1998, McDonald's acquired a minority stake and eventually invested $360 million, owning more than 90% of Chipotle by 2002. They pushed for drive-thrus, breakfast menus, and franchising. Ells fought every single one. The only product the two companies shared across their entire distribution network was a 5-gallon bag of Coca-Cola syrup. McDonald's brought the money and the real estate expertise. Ells kept the soul, and when Chipotle went public in January 2006 at $22 a share, the stock doubled on day one. McDonald's cashed out later that year. They had invested $360 million and walked away with roughly $1.5 billion. At Chipotle's eventual peak, that 90% stake would have been worth over $73 billion. But the stock price was not what made people love Chipotle. The promise was. In 2001, after visiting factory farms he called horrific, Ells launched Food with Integrity. Naturally raised meats, no antibiotics, no added hormones, organic and locally grown produce, dairy from pasture-raised cows. He said, "We decided long ago that we did not want our success tied to the exploitation of animals, farmers, or the environment. And for a while, that was not marketing, it was the actual operation." During the 2012 Grammy Awards, Chipotle ran its first ever national television ad. A 2-minute stop-motion film called Back to the Start, showing a family farm turned into an industrial nightmare and then restored, all set to Willie Nelson covering Coldplay's The Scientist. It won the Grand Prix at the Cannes Lions Festival and got over 9 million YouTube views. For 18 years before that, Chipotle ran no traditional television advertising at all. Pay a premium, and Chipotle would feed you something that was not just food, it was a value system. In 2015, they became the first national chain to go completely non-GMO. That same year, the promise broke. It started in the summer. E. coli in Seattle. Norovirus in California sickened 234 people because an employee who had been vomiting was not sent home for 2 full days. Salmonella affected 22 locations in Minnesota. Then, in October, a multi-state E. coli outbreak hit 11 states and hospitalized 21 people. The CDC investigated using DNA sequencing but never identified the specific contaminated ingredient. Chipotle's own traceability system was not detailed enough to track it. The worst single incident came at Boston College. Over 140 students were sickened by norovirus after an apprentice manager was ordered to keep working while vomiting inside the restaurant, and then helped package a catering order for the basketball team. The outbreaks continued for 3 more years, 135 people at a single Virginia location, 647 at a single Ohio restaurant. By the time the Department of Justice announced a $25 million criminal fine in April 2020, the largest in food safety history, the total count was over 1,100 people sickened. The stock had already fallen 42% from its peak, erasing $8 billion in market value, but the real cost was not the stock price. To survive, Chipotle had to become the exact thing it spent 2 decades telling you it was not. The company hired food safety consultants who transformed operations from the ground up. Tomatoes that were once diced fresh every morning in every restaurant are now washed, diced, re-washed, and pathogen tested at centralized commissary kitchens, then sealed in plastic bags and shipped. Romaine lettuce, cilantro, and cheese are all processed or shredded at commissaries before arriving at the store. And steak is now prepared using sous vide processing at the commissary level, so that raw beef never enters the restaurant. That is not a critic's accusation. That is a direct quote from Chipotle's own food safety page. Els acknowledged it himself. If you ate the tomato on its own, could you tell the difference? Maybe, but I challenge you to tell the difference in a burrito. He said he hoped in-store prep would resume one day. It never did. The local sourcing program that was once the jewel of the brand quietly shrank. Chief Financial Officer Jack Hartung admitted only about 10% of produce was ever sourced locally. After the outbreaks, that language disappeared from the website entirely. Hartung was direct about it. If it is testing and safety versus taking a step backward on local, we would do that. The food with integrity ethos survived as marketing language. The supply chain behind it had fundamentally changed. By 2016, the stock was still down over 60% from its peak. While Chipotle was rebuilding its food safety, someone else was quietly rebuilding its board. In September 2016, Bill Ackman's Pershing Square Capital disclosed a 9.9% stake worth roughly $1.2 billion. By December, 4 new board members had been installed, including Ackman's own partner, Ali Namvar. By March 2017, 4 long-serving directors did not stand for re-election. That December, CO Chief Executive Officer Monty Moran was pushed out. 11 months later, Steve Ells himself announced he was stepping down. Namvar sat on the Chief Executive Officer Search Committee. Chipotle publicly denied the board changes resulted from Ackman's pressure. The timeline told a different story. The replacement chosen by Ackman's reshaped board said everything about what Chipotle had become. On March 5, 2018, Brian Niccol became Chief Executive Officer. His resume was pure corporate fast food. He spent a decade at Procter & Gamble in brand management. He was then Chief Marketing Officer of Pizza Hut and then Chief Executive Officer of Taco Bell, where he championed the Doritos Locos Taco and launched breakfast burritos. The founder who trained at the Culinary Institute of America had been replaced by the guy who put Doritos on a taco. But Niccol delivered exactly what Wall Street wanted. He relocated headquarters from Denver to Newport Beach, California, his hometown. He built a second assembly line in the back of every restaurant exclusively for online orders. He installed drive-through lanes for mobile pickup at over 80% of new locations. The word throughput was mentioned 33 times during a single earnings call in April 2024. Bonuses were tied to speed metrics. New clamshell grills reduced chicken cooking time from 12 minutes to 3 minutes. Revenue grew from $4.5 billion to $11.3 billion. Net income rose nearly sevenfold. The stock climbed roughly 770%. By every metric Wall Street cares about, Nickel was a genius. But the metrics Wall Street doesn't track told a different story. A 38 million member loyalty program replaced the Cultivate Festival. TikTok partnerships and celebrity-inspired menu items replaced the Willie Nelson Grammy ad. The brand's identity had been swapped out entirely, and it was working, at least on paper. Nickel's 2023 compensation was $22.5 million. The median Chipotle employee that year earned $16,595, working roughly 24 hours a week at about $13.29 an hour. The CEO made 1,354 times what the average worker made. In early 2024, customers started noticing their bowls looked different. A chicken burrito that cost $6.50 in 2019 now cost almost $11. Prices had risen 65% in 5 years, more than double the national inflation rate over that same period. Guacamole went from $1.80 to $2.95, and for that higher price, the bowls looked half empty. On May 3, 2024, Keith Lee, a food influencer with 16 million TikTok followers who had previously partnered with Chipotle on a custom menu item, posted a review rating his experience 2 out of 10. He estimated he received 4 pieces of chicken and called everything freezing cold. The video hit 19.4 million views. The TikTok hashtag for Chipotle portion complaints accumulated over 58 million videos. Viral was an understatement. A viral hack emerged. Film the employee making your order on the theory that surveillance pressures bigger portions. A Chipotle spokesperson insisted filming does not result in larger portion sizes. But alleged employees claimed on social media that managers told them not to skimp when cameras were present. Portions became the headline. Then CEO Nickel went on camera and told customers that portions have not gotten smaller. He suggested they give employees a look if they wanted more rice. That clip hit 15.3 million views on TikTok. The comments were not kind. Nickel's response did little to calm the conversation. In late June 2024, a Wells Fargo analyst named Zachary Fadum ordered 75 identical chicken burrito bowls from 8 New York City locations. Half were digital, half were in person. He weighed every single one. The median was 21.5 ounces, but the range ran from 13.8 ounces to 26.8 ounces. The heaviest bowl was nearly double the lightest. Some locations consistently served bowls 33% larger than others on the exact same order. Fadum's published conclusion was analyst speak at its finest. Consistency remains an opportunity, but the rage was not just online. On April 5, 2024, a man named Aaron Michael Brown walked into a Chipotle in Southfield, Michigan. He ordered food and asked for extra guacamole. When a female employee gave him what he perceived as too small a portion, he called her a derogatory name. Brown went behind the counter, bagged his own food, and filled a cup with guacamole. A 21-year-old male employee confronted him. Brown grabbed the worker by the neck, slammed him into a refrigerator, drew a 9mm handgun, and shot him in the right knee. Then he walked to his car and drove away without speeding. He was sentenced to up to 12 years in prison. That shooting happened 1 month before the TikTok portion revolt went viral. Then Nickel left. On August 13, 2024, Starbucks announced it had recruited Brian Nickel as its new chief executive officer. Chipotle's stock fell roughly 7.5% to 10%. Starbucks surged 24.5%. Between the two stocks, approximately $26 billion in market value shifted in a single trading session. Nickel's total first-year Starbucks package was worth up to $117 million. He did not even have to move. Starbucks built him a luxury office near his California home and gave him a private jet to commute. The man credited with saving Chipotle had used it as a stepping stone. 3 months after he left, on November 11, 2024, a class action lawsuit was filed against Nickel and Chief Financial Officer Jack Hartung, alleging Chipotle understated customer dissatisfaction regarding inconsistent portions. This class action lawsuit would mark a new phase for the company. What followed was the worst stretch in Chipotle's history as a public company. Full year 2025 same-store sales fell 1.7%, the first annual comparable sales decline since 2016, when the brand was still reeling from the food safety crisis. Transactions dropped 2.9%. The stock, which peaked at $69.26 in June 2024, fell to $37.22 by February 2026. It was down 46% from the peak. Market capitalization shrank from roughly $90 billion to around $51 billion. And the demographic data told the real story. On the fourth quarter 2025 earnings call, new CEO Scott Boatwright disclosed that 60% of Chipotle's core users earn over $100,000 a year. The hardest hit segment was 25 to 35-year-olds, who made up about 25% of sales but were pulling back the fastest. Boatwright said it plainly: "We are not losing them to the competition. We are losing them to grocery and food at home." Customers earning under $100,000, roughly 40% of sales, had pulled back further. The brand that Steve Ells built as the anti-fast food, the place where a chef's values met a burrito assembly line, had become a $12 bowl assembled by throughput metrics, with steak that arrives pre-cooked in vacuum-sealed bags from a facility most customers will never see. Steve Ells was added to the Forbes billionaires list in May 2025. He is worth $1 billion. He now runs Colonel, a robot-powered restaurant in New York. Bill Ackman invested $1.2 billion and exited with roughly $9.5 billion. Brian Niccol collected $117 million and left for a bigger job. The workers who assembled the burritos earned $16,595 a year. If you want to see the same thing happen to a different brand, I also covered Tim Hortons. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one.